now at 6:30, and Russell Davies has reached episode 3 of Radio Fun, the story of radio comedy. The Second World War is only a year away, but the BBC's soon-to-be sandbagged broadcasting house still has the welcome mat inside the huge main door.
Hello. Excuse the hushed tones, but we're on hallowed ground.
These are sounds from the entrance hall in Broadcasting House. These footsteps are the footsteps of people who are hurrying in to keep appointments in the building. And most of them make for the inquiry desks in each corner of the entrance hall.
The year is 1938.
2 children have just passed me. I think they must be on their way to join the Children's Hour tour of Broadcasting House. I think we'll follow them to the reception desk, where I can see that several grown-ups are making inquiries.
Good evening. Good evening. I have an appointment with Mr. Green. Oh, yes. Thanks so much. Is it rehearsal? Yes. Thank you. Studio 3B, please. 3B? Yes, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Is it possible, please, to see over this building?
No, I'm afraid not, you see. Unfortunately, we cannot make arrangements like that. Oh, so sorry.
I see. Thank you.
Good night.
Well, that seems to settle that. Fortunately, that gent wasn't with us. We're going to tour the building anyway.
Well, now the party has somehow been cajoled into the lift, and I think there's just room for us with our microphone, so we'll go with them on their journey to the 3rd floor. Come on.
How far does this lift go?
Oh, from the top of the building to the bottom.
This is riveting. When do we get to see some broadcasting? Ah, a talk studio.
There's a lot of decoration in the studio, but some of it's very artificial. For instance, that window at the end of the room is a sham. Again, you mustn't try and take any of these books out of their shelves. They're stuck in.
BBC doesn't trust anybody, does it? Ah, a room lined with gramophone records, not stuck in.
All these records round the walls, are they the archives we hear so much about?
Yes, at least some of the records of the archives. They're not all here.
And some of them, on the contrary, are there. Ah, good heavens, a zinc bar. What's that for?
Oh, that was the old train effect, until we got records of the real thing.
How's it work?
By running a roller skate up and down over the rivets, like this.
Yes, that's jolly good.
Well, you have to say something. What about a proper studio, then?
Here we have Studio 7F, and the engineers are testing it with a teddy bear's picnic record.
Anyway, our time's up, and I think I'd better go and help maneuver this party back to the entrance hall. So, goodbye.
Goodbye. He's never going to faint away from excessive enthusiasm, was he? Still, that was a Children's Hour tour of Broadcasting House in 1938, the year when Sir John Reith, the architect of BBC policy, left the building never to return. It was a curious departure. The Prime Minister, Neville Chamberlain, refused to say that he was instructing Reith to leave. It was just that if he did leave, he'd be jolly glad. A very BBC way to go. What Reith left behind, among other things, was a variety department bursting to continue its expansion, and a drama department with ambitions of their own to be funny. Here are some very senior BBC actors getting in on the comedy act in the same year.
This is the regional program. Tonight we present Multiple Studio Blues, or Better Narrate Than Never. Devised and diffused by Dennis Johnston and John Cheadle. The part of the producer is played by Val Gielgud, handicapped by Gladys Young, Mary O'Farrell, Laidman Brown, Philip Wade, Carlton Hubbs, Geoffrey Winkett, Norman Shelley, and Bruce Winston. The program produced, more or less, by John Cheadle.
Lucille,
old boy, this damn Foster, I mean, you've got to know, old boy, it's no use leaving it to the engineers.
Yes, thanks very much. But about these effects, now, when we get to the battle sequence, I shall give you a flick.
How about some seagulls?
I wonder what that red light's for.
No seagulls in the battle sequence.
I mean, I've been in this game since the old Savoy Hill days, old boy, and believe me, you've got to know. Oh, go on, let's get some seagulls. I've got some good ones.
I will not have any seagulls, that's definite. What's that, D'Artagnan?
Oh, go on, be a sport. Let's get some seagulls.
Oh, nothing. We were just discussing with Richelieu here what that red light's for.
What red light? Oh, I don't know. Better ask the announcer.
He said no seagulls. We always have seagulls. They're true blue.
Now, come on, everybody. Please get ready. Please get ready. Where's the announcer? Oh, there you are. Why are you late? Don't you know we're on the air in 5 minutes?
5 minutes, eh? Well, you've been on the air for the past 3.
I mean, it's a bit hard for us if you don't turn up. What's that? We're on now.
The cast of multiple studio blues spared neither themselves nor their London colleagues, nor the worthy outputs of BBC stations in other parts of the country.
I say I am sorry about all that. I've been working under difficulties. However, if anything should break down, I don't think we need worry because we have on standby a recording of a very interesting industrial feature program in blank verse from the north. I would like you very much to hear it. It's really astonishingly good, and we will hear it, I said, in the event of anything going wrong.
This program was a few months post-Reith, who probably wouldn't have approved of such a self-regarding, if self-satirizing exercise, and certainly wouldn't have stood for all the realistic damning and blasting that went on in the course of the script. Censorship was still a sore point between comedians and the BBC. Even Stanley Holloway, to his astonishment, felt the restraining hand of authority.
And I put the music in front of him, and he played for me, and I sang, with a red tucked underneath her arm, she walks the bloody tower. And Harry said, you can't sing that. I said, why not? He said, you couldn't say that over the air. But I said, I don't see why not. And we argued, and I argued on the basis that the word bloody there was not an adjective, it was a proper noun. The bloody tower was part of the Tower of London. Anyway, we had to send for Roy Eckersley, who was then the director of programmes up on the top of the building somewhere. He came down and sat in the control room. And I said, Roy, listen to this song, because I knew him. I said, and see if you think it's, anything that I can't sing here. And he was in the control room, and I sang the song perfectly straight in front of the microphone. And at the end of it, I turned to him, and he was laughing in the control room. And I said, what do you think? He said, what do you think? I said, I think it should go over. I said, because if you have any complaints, you'll have a perfectly legitimate answer. Mm-hmm. Perfectly bona fide answer that this is a proper noun and not an adjective. He said, right, let it go. And, of course, it was enormously successful. But I take a little of the credit to myself, because putting it in the northern dialect and saying bloody instead of bloody, like a Cockney would, made all the difference, because later on the bands, the vocal choruses in the bands, the boys started, she walks the bloody tower, and, of course, that they stopped it then, the BBC stopped it, because it became offensive then. But when I said, she walks the bloody tower, it was different. It was gentler, you know?
The notorious case of Max Miller, who was banned from the BBC on account of a blue, if not ultraviolet, innuendo, proved that there were some jokes the management wouldn't stand for. In taking their famous relays from the halls and theatres, the BBC variety producers were always, to some extent, in the hands of the artists on the night. So they would jump at the chance of relaying a little review where the scripted set pieces were more or less reliable and constant. One they took in 1938, called 9 Sharp, strikes me as remarkably undated, at least in the sense that the material would have fitted in perfectly with one of the famous reviews of the 50s, or later.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, our guest artist who wants to introduce to you one of the strangest phenomena of the 20th century, the only living fish mimic, Mr. Edwin Carr.
Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you the only natural fish mimic in the entire British Isles. There are, of course, other mimics, but none so completely natural as myself. I am married, having a wife and 2 children. And in passing, it is interesting to note that they cannot imitate fish at all. In appearance, I am, as you see, of medium stature, having whitish hair, a pointed face, glasses, and a fawn moustache. And looking at me, it is difficult to imagine why I have been endowed with this great gift. By great gift, I of course refer to my powers of fish mimicry, and not to my fawn moustache. After my first fish mimicking recital, a startled scientific world subjected my great gift to a searching examination, and it was discovered that the laugh-like reproduction was caused by my fawn moustache, which, falling as it does, outwards and downwards, to the extent of 1 1/8 inches, forms a sort of natural baffle ball. I will now give you a demonstration of one of my most superhuman feats. I will imitate the call of the red-bellied gudgeon or blushing fish. This call is so high in the sky as to be completely inaudible to the human eardrum. Dogs can hear it, however, as their eardrums are highly sensitive, and it is also audible to a Mrs. Hall, a lady friend of mine. A lady friend of mine. She lives on the Norfolk Broads, and who has been endowed, through some caprice of Mother Nature, with the eardrums of a elk hound. Now, will you please listen carefully and watch your dog's faces? I must insist upon a deathly hush.
Well, I do hope that sounded as funny to you as it looked to us. Broadcasting fish is a rather tricky business.
I don't think the BBC has ever solved that problem, but Professor Edwin Karp, alias Richard Haydn, went on to Hollywood, where he made a career playing what the record books call adenoidal character cameos. I think you can see why. The BBC's own in-house variety format show of the moment was necessarily a bit less atmospheric than that, because it was presented without an audience. But it did have most other things, including a singing commare.
This is the national program. Monday night at 7. The singing commare, Judy Shirley, accompanied by the orchestra conducted by Charles Shadwell.
It's Monday night at 7. Can't you hear the chimes? They're telling you to take an easy chair, to settle by the fireside, look at your radio times. Monday night at 7's on the air. Now here's a little lady, she'll imitate for you some personalities you've all adored. So let's ring up the curtains on Monday night at 7 and start the evening well with Beryl Lord.
Some of Beryl Lord's victims are not well enough remembered now to demonstrate to you how accurate her impersonations were, but this one, I think, will make the point.
And now I would like to bring to you Miss Gracie Fields singing one of her popular comedy numbers, Shall I Be an Old Man's Darling? Come on, lad, tickle the ivories, let's be off. I'm in such a tangle since the block began to dangle all his tainted gold in front of mother's eyes. Said I'd be secure for life if I'd only be his wife. Now I'm not going to marry any old Tom, Dick, or Harry. It's my poor but honest babe I idolize. But mother says that I should wed all Mr. Moneybags instead. Although my heart is free and money's tempting me, I'm crazy on my sweetheart Dave. Shall I be an old man's darling, or shall I be a young man's slave? The older may be bent, but he can pay the rent. But can he buy the love I crave? Shall I be an old man's darling, or shall I be a young man's slave?
Not Gracie Fields, but a most acceptable substitute, Beryl Lord. And yet there was still nothing specially tailored for radio about this radio comedy. It was still comic turns. But 1938 was the year of change. Here's the man who was at the sharp end.
I've got a cutting here from the press of the time. It says, novel idea, comedian serial program. Arthur Askey, the lucky man. People say, who the hell's Arthur Askey? An idea novel in every respect of broadcasting in this country was approved by the BBC programme Board Today. A comedian has been selected, material will be written round him, and in the new year he will broadcast every Wednesday night for 12 weeks. Such a contract has never before been given to a radio comedian in this country.
This is a national program. Bandwagon, produced by Harry S. Pepper and Gordon Cryer.
Come on to take a trip upon the bandwagon. It's a one boys in the bandwagon. Come on to take a trip upon the bandwagon. Now, boys.
What was new about this was the permanence of the comedian at the centre of the series. In fact, two comedians, big-hearted Arthur Askey, known as Big for short, largely because he was small, and Richard Stinker Murdoch, who wasn't and didn't. Some of the material they used made no claim to be new. In fact, quite the opposite.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, Bandwagon proudly presents Chestnut Corner. Or don't stop us, even if you've heard them.
I want a collar for my father.
Yes, my little man, one like mine.
No, a clean one.
Good morning. Could I try on that suit in the window?
Well, I'd rather you tried it on in the dressing room.
I haven't seen your girl for a long time. Has she kept her figure?
Kept it? She's doubled it. I know a baby... Wait a minute, mate. I know a baby who gained 20 pounds a week on elephant's milk.
Don't be silly. Whose baby was it?
The elephant's. Didn't I meet you in Cape Town 3 years ago?
No, I've never been to Cape Town.
Neither have I. It must have been two other fellas. I've got a nasty cold this evening.
Ah, when I get a cold, I get my dear little wife to rub my chest, give me a hot toddy, and tuck me up in bed. You ought to try that.
I will. What's your address? Good morning. Have you any kidleys?
Kidleys? You mean kidneys?
I said kidleys, didn't I? My people are in the iron and steel trade.
Really?
Yes, my mother irons and my father steels.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes Chestnut Corner for this week. Next week we hope to bring you some even older old jokes.
With two comedians at work, the basis of the show clearly had to be different forms of crosstalk, but at least they were different. Sometimes various forms seemed to be going on at once. And there were enough sound effects to conjure up an instant landscape into which Big and Stinker would perform a sideways leap for as long as it suited them. It wasn't situation comedy so much as a kind of role-playing.
Have you got anything put by for a rainy day?
Well, I could spend the weekend in Manchester.
Could you?
Yes, just about.
You know, we ought to have a sideline.
Oh, what do you mean, sideline?
Well, I've been thinking. People have got to eat.
Oh, this is going to be interesting. Draw up your chair, Grandfather.
Well, why shouldn't you and I start a restaurant?
Yeah, but I don't know how about it.
Well, I do. I know all about it.
Yes, but I can't cook.
There's no need for you to cook. You can be the waiter.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know anything about waiting.
Well, I'll show you how to do it and put you through your paces.
Put me through my what?
Put you through your paces.
Oh, I thought you said my braces. I'm sorry. I didn't really. I thought it would be funny to say that. You were saying.
Comical little man. Now, you are silly little man.
Yeah.
Yes, it would have been impossible to keep Arthur to a proper situation. He was too fond of his improvised asides, and you had to have sharp ears to keep up with him. What you did get, though, was production radio comedy, regular cast, regular slot, and a completely scripted show, plus asides.
Now, perhaps you'd like to tell my playmates about our morning exercises.
Certainly. Well, we do all the usual exercises, you know, on the knees bend and touching the toes, of course.
Yeah, we usually do both those exercises together to save time, you see.
Then Arthur practices swinging the leg.
While Dickie throws his weight about.
Yeah. Then we do our swimming exercises.
Yes, and talking of swimming, let me advise you all never to dive on a full stomach.
Why not?
Well, I did one morning and the lady was annoyed, you know.
And then we do our deep breathing exercises in front of an open
yes,
window.
But mind you, we don't breathe as deeply now as we did at first.
No fear. Look what happened when Arthur breathed in too quickly.
I swallowed one of my pigeons, 2 tram tickets and a window box.
Well, now, ladies and gentlemen, Arthur Askey will demonstrate some of the exercises that have made him the fine specimen of manhood that he now is.
You could have a body like mine in 30 days.
Shut up. Don't discourage them.
Okay.
What didn't find its way into these 1938-39 performances, and it's a puzzling absence to a modern ear, is any mention of the tremendously sensitive political situation in Europe, and in particular Adolf Hitler, who was responsible for it. That's because, astonishingly, Hitler had joined all those lodgers and vicars and honeymooners and items of women's underwear on the variety department's banned list. You just weren't allowed to joke about him. Either Hitler's personal feelings had to be spared, or, more likely, given Neville Chamberlain's cast of mind, inflammatory and warlike feelings against the horrible man were not to be encouraged. So it was that on Boat Race Day, 1939, Murgatroyd and Winterbottom, one of the snappier double acts, took as their theme the boat race.
The coxes are still shouting the strokes. Here it is. Cambridge, 112, 112, 112.
Oxford, X2 on 2 on X3 draws and 4 away.
Not quite a record for the course.
No. I say, Captain, the water's rather choppy here.
Chopped anymore, it'll be ruined.
Right, sir.
A lot more intelligent people standing on the bank here.
Yes, the crowd isn't quite so dense now.
No.
Who's that man there twirling a cane?
Oh, that's the headmaster of Cambridge.
Oh, really? By the way, my boy, what school did you go to?
Oh, I'm an old harmonium.
Old harmonium?
Where did you go?
I'm an old cowhand.
Oh.
Both coxes are shouting 4. They are passing the Chiswick 8.
Chiswick 8 are rowing very well.
Very well indeed.
Mortlake Brewery is now in sight.
There will be 2 minutes interval.
The sun's come out.
It's gone in again.
It's out again.
It's in again.
It's out again.
It's in again.
I'll give you the sunstroke.
It's all right, I've got it. They're going on to Barnes Bridge now.
Better than going over it.
And they're well on their way to Oxshop,
Bagshop,
Bulford,
Hookham,
Farnham. And they've only got to go through a crisis.
And Bolter's Lock.
And they're there.
The race is over.
Hooray!
Murgatroyd and Winterbottom, who each had equally well-known identities elsewhere. Ronald Franco as a rather worldly and even risque monologuist and patter-song man, and Tommy Handley as Tommy Handley. Topical humour had to be about as harmless and abstract as that. But if British institutions like the boat race were going to carry on being there to be made fun of, the privilege was going to have to be fought for. You could keep Hitler from invading comedy, but nobody did much else to stop him, until Sunday morning, September the 3rd, 1939, when Neville Chamberlain made the unfunniest broadcast any licence payer had so far heard. I think most people my age and older know it off by heart.
The British ambassador in Berlin handed the German government a final note stating that unless we heard from them by 11 o'clock, that they were prepared at once to withdraw their troops from Poland a state of war would exist between us. I have to tell you now that no such undertaking has been received, and that consequently this country is at war with Germany.
You can tell how much he enjoyed saying that. People who were listening that Sunday morning tell me it was a shock to hear Chamberlain's declaration without being in any way a surprise. Evacuations and air raid precautions have been underway for some time. Some of the emergency measures, though, were a bit more joyless than people expected.
This is London. The government have given instructions for the following important announcements. Closing of places of entertainment. All cinemas, theatres, and other places of entertainment are to be closed immediately until further notice. They are being closed because if they were hit by a bomb, large numbers would be killed or injured. Churches and other places of public worship will not be closed.
Nobody was going to die laughing if the government could help it. All in all, there wasn't a lot to be said for Sunday, September the 3rd, 1939, except, A, that it inaugurated Hitler's downfall, and B, that without it, one of the most deservedly famous monologues of that whole era could not have begun with the words,
"The day war broke out, my missus looked at me and she said, 'What good are you?' I said, 'How do you mean, what good am I?' 'Well,' she said, 'you're too old for the army. You couldn't get into the Navy, and they wouldn't have you in the Air Force, so what good are you?' I said, 'I'll do something.' She said, 'What?' I said, 'How do I know? I'll have to think.' She said, 'I don't see how that's going to help you. You've never done it before, so what good are you?' I said, 'Don't keep saying what good am I?' I said, there'll be munitions.' She said, 'Now, how can you go on munitions?' I said, 'I never said anything about going on. I said, there'll be some.' 'Well,' she said, 'all the young fellas will be getting called up,' and she said, 'You'll have to go back to work.' Oh, she's got a cruel tongue. Anyhow, I haven't had to go back to work. I'm a lamplighter. Now, but the first day I got my Home Guard uniform, I'm getting the trousers next year, but the first day I went home and I slipped upstairs and I put it on. And I came down into the kitchen and the missus looked at me and she said, 'What are you supposed to be?' I said, 'Supposed to be?' I said, 'I'm one of the Home Guards.' She said, 'One of the Home..." She said, "What are the others like?" And then the missus said, she said, "Well, what do you do in the Home Guards?" I said, "I've got to stop Hitler's army landing." She said, "What, you?" I said, "No, there's Harry Bates and Charlie Evans." And I said, "There's 7 or 8 of us all together." I said, "We're in a group." I said, "We're on guard in a little hut behind the Dog and Pullet." She said, "Well, what's the good of being on guard in a little hut behind the Dog and Pullet?" She said, "I suppose that was your idea." I said, "Aye, and that Charlie Evans wants to claim it as his." She said, do you know this Hitler? Have you ever..." "Do I know?" I said, "Now, don't talk rubbish, Rita. Do I know Hitler? Howard, I'm not even in the paint business or anything. Howard..." "Well," she said, "how are you going to know which is him if they do land?" I said, "I've got a tongue in my head, haven't I? But it's no good trying to reason with. She doesn't seem to concentrate. Only the other morning. Oh, good gracious me, look at the time. No, I should have been on guard 2 hours ago. They'll be looking for me everywhere. No, I've left the whole of the coast exposed. You'll have to forgive me. I really have to go.
The great Robb Wilton, whom anybody would forgive, bringing some British character comedy to the microphone. In fact, British character, full stop. Next time, we'll see how radio contrived to keep that character alive while producing comedy on an industrial scale. Goodbye.
Carry on, bandwagon.
Next week, the war years find radio comedians gathering round microphones throughout the country in the guise of, among others, Jack Warner's brother Sid, Tommy Handley's Minister of Aggravation and Mysteries, and Jack Train's ubiquitous spy, Funf. Radio Fun is written and presented by Russell Davies and produced by Neil Cargill.
In episode 4 of Radio Fun, Russell Davies traces the impact of World War II on the story of radio comedy.
Hello. The Second World War on radio started with neither a bang nor a whimper, but with an organ solo. In fact, dozens of them, for several days, while new schedules and policies were sorted out. Bouts of gramophone records were interspersed with soothing tunes from Sandy McPherson. Comedy, in the meantime, was moving house. 2 days before the outbreak of war, actors, scriptwriters and producers had opened sealed orders which dispatched anything and everything to do with Radio Fun to the supposed safety of Bristol. So it was from there that comic hostilities opened, with the ban on Hitler jokes, of course, no longer in force.
Well, let's tell them the joke about old Nasty's father and mother.
No, the censor had that out this morning, if I remember right, Claire.
Oh, yes. In any case, Vic, remember what we agreed? We were going to give old Nasty a rest this week and talk about something else for a change.
Yes, but you feel you'd like to say something about him. You know, he's pinched a lot of our publicity, hasn't he? I mean, he's had his name in the paper every day this week.
Anyway, Mrs. Bagwash isn't worried about him.
Oh, she doesn't care a hoot. She said to me this morning, it's no good them Germans sitting up in those balloons over London trying to frighten us because they can't.
Askey and Murdoch in Bandwagon, whose resumption was actually greeted by an MP in the House of Commons. But with no immediate onslaught coming from the Germans, patriotism had nothing to get its teeth into. Scriptwriters' minds were cast back almost in embarrassment to the First World War.
Now listen, playmates, get a load of this. This is our patriotic song.
Fasten up your worries in your old portmanteau and grin, grin, grin.
It's a long way to Connemara, so turn the dark clouds in.
Keep the gas fires roaring for every Tommy and Jack.
There's a long, long wind up trailing
till the boys come back.
We hang on.
Bandwagon didn't long survive its transplantation into wartime, so it was left to more obviously martial-sounding shows like Garrison Theatre to carry audiences onward into the really painful part of the conflict. Garrison Theatre was built around the very English talents of Jack Warner, although there was something slightly American about the way guest artists like Naunton Wayne would refer to the host in their scripts. His prowess at golf, for example.
Jack Warner plays a very fair game, if you watch him. And he played this afternoon, and he did a 75. Plays every day. He always does a 75. As soon as he's played 75, he picks up and comes home. I think, as a matter of fact, he only plays because it makes him thirsty, and he rather likes that. So while he was walking back to the clubhouse today, he said to the caddy, he said, "My word, what couldn't I do to a pint of beer?" And the caddy said, "Hit it with a club," he said.
Jack Warner himself brandished a number of catchphrases, notably "Mind my bike" and "Little girl," and a feature that enabled him to make cameo appearances in other shows as well as his own was the famous letter from his brother Sid.
Well, as the old lady said when she was standing on an aerodrome and saw an aeroplane coming straight at her, "I must get a move on. There doesn't seem to be any sense in hanging about." Well, it's got it written down. I'm reading it all. So I will close now, as I must go to the canteen to get some real breath to breathe on my buttons as I'm going on guard. He's crackers, my brother. He's at the pole. Listen, I'm going on guard and must look nice and tidy for our Blue Federal Sergeant Major. So goodbye for now, with love to Mum and one and all, your affectionate brother Sid. P.S. I thought I was coming home on leave this week, but Lord Gort thought different. Here we are,
Ah, the old orchestra chord. Very British, that. We still had a lot to learn about slickness from the Americans, as you can tell from this recording of another early wartime show, starring Americans, but announced by a Briton. Just the way they say the title shows the difference.
This is the BBC program for the forces. High gas.
Hi, gang. Welcome to the High Gang Show, starring B.B. Daniels, Vic Oliver, and Ben Lyon. That's me, folks, with Jay Woburn, his orchestra, Sam Brown, the Green Sisters, and our guest star, whose name we're going to keep a secret until later on in the program.
Yes, it turned out to be the BBC's first disc jockey, Christopher Stone, whose rendering of Jeepers Creepers, It's a Pleasure Not to Play You. B.B. Daniels and Ben Lyon had a style roughly based on the crosstalk of George Burns and Gracie Allen, though the material sometimes left Burns and Allen's scriptwriters to be desired.
Tell me more about this amazing farm of yours. Do you raise any vegetables?
Oh, yes, but we can't be bothered, Ben, with the ordinary type of vegetables, such as carrots and potatoes and cabbage, and Brussels sprouts.
Well, that's where you're wrong, B.B. Those kind of vegetables are very essential to Britain's Dig for Victory campaign.
Well, and so are the vegetables we raise.
Well, what kind do you raise?
Well, they're extraordinary vegetables. Why, do you know, Ben, that Dick and I were the first farmers to inoculate cucumbers with yellow jaundice germs?
Well, yeah? What did you get?
Bananas.
A form of recognition humour, that. People remembering what bananas did once look like when they had bananas. The hardships and inconveniences of war arrived well in advance of the real bloodletting, which is why a third early wartime show, It's That Man Again, featured Tommy Handley as the Minister of Aggravation and Mysteries, care of the Office of Twerps. To that extent, his show's main target was bureaucratic inefficiency, although as from October 39, the enemy was also represented by Jack Train's ubiquitous spy, Funf. There'd been a pilot series of It's That Man Again in the summer of 39, but when the second winter series ended in February 1940, the program was actually off the air for 18 months, and none of these early editions survived. Shows like Garrison Theatre, the Old Town Hall, and pre-war survivals like Music Hall and Monday Night at 7, now retimed to Monday Night at 8, kept things going, and all broadcast from somewhere in England, of course, though not for long. The fall of France meant that Bristol came within easy bombing range for the Luftwaffe, so Comedy HQ began to suffer very heavy raids. In February 1941, accordingly, a cryptic news item went out telling of a camel that had fallen ill at London Zoo. This was the signal for the entire comedy operation to up six and move to the top left-hand corner of North Wales, to Bangor.
We descended upon the little town of Bangor like a swarm of locusts. Of locusts with brightly coloured trousers, all sorts of things that Bangor has never knew existed even. You can imagine, can't you? They're rather tight-knit, a little bit narrow, say, forgive me for saying so, and suddenly these creatures arise, all sizes and shapes, with every sort of unusual dress, let's put it that way, and they didn't know what had hit them at all. The extraordinary thing is that after a few weeks, they took us to their house and they became the greatest friends. We made wonderful friends up there. And I tell you, it's two of the happiest years of my life that I spent up there.
Kay Cavendish. Not even Bangor turned out to be completely safe, however. Here's an accidentally recorded live duet by the same Kay Cavendish and Paula Green. Among the noises on it, if you listen very closely, you may hear the detonations of two separate parachute landmines, one of which killed a BBC driver outside the theatre.
What you do, oh, it isn't what you do, it's the way that you do it. Say what you do, oh, it isn't what you do, it's the way that you do it. La 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 la. Oh, mama, it's a rhythm. You can try hard, it don't mean a thing. Take it easy, then the jive will swing tame.
By the time the number halted, the programme had been faded out. But most memories of Bangor were happier than that. It was a town suddenly full of eccentric people, writers, actors, musicians, and conductors like Ernest Longstaff.
Ernest Longstaff was a strange man. He was Chopin was on his shoulder, if you know what I mean. He was always in the clouds. And he used to dress in a rather strange manner. I remember he had a +4 suit with red, white, and blue socks and a coloured bicycle, and he used to cycle up the High Street in Bangor. And one day he's walking past Bob Jones' cigarette shop, which is a well-known meeting place, and somebody said, "There goes the BBC." And he said, "How do you know?" He said, "Well, what else could it be?"
When they weren't up in Bangor, Charlie Chester and all the other BBC comedy stars were out visiting the soldiery.
Army, we've all got our troubles. I've just been handed a solicitor's letter from one of my lady fans. She alleges that my last broadcast caused her to break a leg. On hearing me announced by Gordon, she rushed to the set to switch off and fell over a chair. Despite this, let me tell you that I'm feeling very optimistic today. Look how well our African campaign is going. If we can only keep the Italians on the run and the breeze is favourable, they'll be in Chipping Sodbury Marketplace by Easter Monday.
The inexhaustible patriot, Stainless Stephen, who tended to take upon himself the role of spokesman.
And now a message of thanks to our good friends in America. We enjoy their programs over the short waves, and we shall welcome their materials over the Atlantic waves.
We three, we're all alone, living in a memory. My echo, my shadow, and me.
Frank Sinatra coming over the Atlantic wave, to be transmuted by the Happy Drone Gang into this.
Working for the BBC, Ramsbottom, and Enoch, and me. We're not highbrow, just a little one lady. Ramsbottom, and Enoch, and me.
Happy Drone's regulars, Cecil Frederick, Robbie Vincent and Harry Corris as Mr. Lovejoy. We're not highbrow, they sang, and nor were they. Nor were their guests either, I'm glad to say, although Billy Bennett was almost a gentleman. They did us all a favour by letting him record this gem in the summer of 1941. Sir John Reith would never have allowed it.
Years ago, in 1960, Shakespeare told the brave Black Watch, heaven smiles upon the Irish, but gives the money to the Scotch. See, that girl has gone the corner. She is rich, as you can guess. Once upon a time, she'd nothing. Now that girl's got twice as less. And though she suffers with good health, pity her in all her wealth. She was happier when she was poor. Though for years she'd the wolf at the door. But the wolf got inside once, and what did she do? She just threw him out and said, "Get in the queue." Now she lives in a mansion in Scunthorpe, and her 6 double chins reach the floor. She's got a red nose, 'cause through feeling she's whined. Through eating too much, there's a load on her mind. There's a searchlight in front and a pillion behind. She was happier when she was poor. She was happier when she was poor, in a cottage on old Ilkley Moor. She lived in a room that was just 4 by 2, her left leg in bed and her right up the flue. She slept in a bell-bottom nightdress. Now she's got silk pajamas galore. She's got a swell suit trimmed with butterfly stripes. She wore them one night, but her husband got tight, and the rascal went butterfly catching all night. She was happier when she was poor.
Almost a gentleman, and almost at the end of his career, too, Billy Bennett. Among the new shows offering work to solo acts like him, there was one in particular that was destined to have a long career. It grew out of the same bombing that drove comedy out of Bristol. The factories there suffered very badly, and both Ernest Bevin, the Minister of Labour, and a team of BBC comedians were sent along to bolster morale. It seemed to work, and Bevin suggested it should become a regular exercise. 6 months later, he was back, and introducing a similar show himself. For one lunchtime only, fortunately. His inspirational rhetoric was not up to the Churchill standard.
I want to say how glad I am to see the marvellous and magnificent spirit of the old city, notwithstanding all that Hitler's done to it. And to say to him, you can knock down our buildings, but you can't break our hearts.
I don't think they were that keen to let him knock down the buildings, do you? Still, to the business of the meeting.
Special privilege to me now to introduce two very dear friends. And friends of yours, friends of mine, Elsie and Doris Walton.
Hello, Kurt. How are you? Oh, follow that. Oh, it's very lovely. Hang on, Dave, all right? Yes. Don't meet much nowadays, do we? No. Don't often meet during the day. No, see? Got something better to do. That's right. Yeah. I'll be happy. I must say sometimes I get a bit tired, you know, with making shells 6 days out of 7. Blimey, Kurt, good job you're not a chicken then. They make shells every day. Still, joking apart, you know, when I heard you'd gone into munition work, I went straight away and started myself. Good for you. You and me don't want to ask him twice, do we? No fear. I wasn't going to wait till my age group was called up. Blimey, the war can't last as long as that, no.
And that was the beginning of a programme tradition that was so convinced of its place in history that on its second birthday it produced an autobiography.
Ladies and gentlemen, Workers' Playtime!
300 times now we've broadcast that tune and that show. During 2 years, over 250,000 workers have seen it in their own factories, and more than 7 million heard it regularly on the radio. The first programme of all, on May the 31st, 1941, came from a Royal Ordnance factory, deep in the heart of somewhere or other. Michael North, who produced the first series, took down Margaret Eves and Fred Ewell, Jean de Cassilis, and Forsyth Seaman and Farrell.
Sing closer as you march along. Sing sailor, sing a dirty song. Let the sound flow around everywhere. Soon our sailors will pick up the air.
As Eleanor Farrell sang that in the first Workers' Playtime, that's what you heard on the air. And this is what the performers saw from the other side of the microphone. Here's Jean de Cassilis.
An enormous audience of men and women seated in an empty workshop. An empty workshop, you will ask, how was that? Well, that's just the point. It was empty of machinery, because, you see, it was still in process of being built. It was a new extension to the factory, and we were using it for a concert hall. All over the factory grounds and in all the annexes and workshops, loudspeakers had been installed to relay the show.
Jeanne de Cassilis, whose featured character was the scatterbrained Mrs. Feather. The BBC tradition of gossipy charlady figures, by the way, was being maintained by Suzette Tarry.
Good evening. It's me, Suzette Tarry, yes. I say, Sandy, look what I got to now, musical. Oh, my goodness. I do hope my friends, Mrs. Jenkins and Mrs. Oggs, not listening in, because they think I'm particularly who I mix with. Yes, I do. Well, as a matter of fact, they think I'm the one who asks all the questions for the Drains Trust. Yes. They do. Yes. And, you know, if they knew I was on a musical, it'd be such a letdown for me. Then I've gone and upset the producer, Mr. Charlie Sharman. Oh, dear. I always get him mixed up with Johnny Shadwell, I'm sorry. But still, I'd rather upset those two gentlemen than my neighbours, because I've got to live with my neighbours, if you understand me meaning.
And the one-woman Buggins family of Mabel Constanduras resurfaced to help the Ministry of Food put over a few of those terrible wartime recipes, however much Grandma Buggins disliked them.
I know. I'll make a Connaught pie. Another disguise for parsnips. No, I'll tell you what's in it. I wrote it down at the food barrow yesterday. 5 ounces of flaked oats, a pint of water. That's one thing they ain't rationed yet. Don't, Grandma, you'll make me lose my thread. Where was I? 5 ounces of flaked oats and a pint of water. Oh, yes. Then there's half a leek, 1 teaspoonful of mixed herbs, and 1 teaspoonful of salt. Got that? Half a leek, 1 teaspoon of mixed herbs, and a teaspoonful of salt.
But among the 120 hours of programming a week that the Variety Department was required to produce as a minimum, it was the live audience shows that meant most, not so much because of the performances, but because of the audiences. You could hear them longing to enjoy themselves and succeeding. Old stagers like Leonard Henry had never had so much fun.
I will now conclude with a Latin tag from one of my bootlegs. You know what's called again? Entitled Nulli Secondus. Nulli Secondus. Nulli What He Said. Which means those who live in fast blouses shouldn't show bones. Look here, I'm tired of camouflaging your bloomers. What did you say? I said I'm tired of camouflaging your bloomers. I have a horrid fear that all is not as it should be.
What a lovely audience to play to. On a bitter January day in 1942, the two Leslies, Cerrone and Holmes, are having a tougher time with the more distant audience of music hall, but then their material is a little bit iffier.
A Jewish lad went to answer the call up for military service, and when he got there, he said, I want to join the pawnbrokers battalion. They said, pawnbrokers battalion? What for? He said, no advance without security. Well, they said, there is no pawnbrokers battalion. All right, then he said, I'll join the Jewish Navy. They said, there is no Jewish Navy. He said, all right, I'll wait. Now it's time for another little song, I think.
Yes, off we go, Charlie.
Now throughout the land, both near and far, people do their shopping while they may. And no matter who or where they are, this is what you hear them mostly say. Oh, butcher, have you got a bit of meat? Oh, butcher, do beef. Let me have some chops and through it, and I swear you'll never rue it. Oh, butcher, have you got a little meat?
It was certainly the shortages and all the allied nuisances and deprivations of war that provided the quickest route to an audience's heart, as one worker's playtime turn knew better than anyone.
Now, the next one is just as difficult, but it's a wee bit easier. I decided to give a prize to the one who guesses this one. Now, listen, everybody. I know what that is. What is it? A man sawing wood. Now, you're wrong. It's a canteen sausage defending its young.
Yes, a local joke, but a universal one. Canteens were all alike. That was, of course, that man again, Tommy Handley, who by now was back on the air with an almost totally recast Itmar. Attacks on ministries were now felt to be disloyal, so Handley became his wash-out the mayor of Foaming at the Mouth, surrounded by the likes of Sam Scram, his American sidekick, the commercial traveller, Claude and Cecil, the diver, and all the gang.
Please silence for His Worship the Mayor.
Thanks, Leslie. I am honoured, gentlemen, by the salute of 21 guns. 22, I'm sorry.
2 months' absence from duty renders your election as mayor null and void. We shall proceed to elect a new mayor at once. I make my protest. I lay it on the table.
What do you think this is, a mayor's nest? So I demand a hearing. Has anything happened in my absence? No. Did it make any difference whether I was here or not? No. I better try another line. This isn't going so well. Gentlemen. No, not shit, you chump, you well. Now, before we go any further, let me explain my long absence. You can't. Is my speech being recorded?
That, sir, is neither here nor there.
Well, pipe down, old word, sir. Listen, I'll record it myself. Now, bring in the sound apparatus, and if you haven't got that, an unsound one will do. I'll bring it in. What's all this?
Get in. After you, good.
No, after you. Thistle, will you try the mic, Mr. Mayor? What do you mean? Say something down it?
Yes, we want to test it to see if there's an echo.
An echo, right. Hello, Bill. Hello, Tom. Yes, there is an echo. It's all right.
In all these wartime broadcasts, recorded as live with all the nerves that involves, you'll hear many a fluff and a slip from the artists, but hardly ever from Handley, in spite of all the tongue twisters his scriptwriter Ted Kavanagh gave him to do. Many a time he would rescue someone else from a tiny disaster with an ad lib. It was tough on the nerves.
Well, first of all, Tommy, I'd just like to congratulate you on being 300 performances old. What's it feel like?
Well, it doesn't feel so bad. I don't feel 300, although I may look it. But otherwise, I feel grand.
It's easier on mistake.
It is. Well, this is 300 first night, actually.
As he remarked after the war, with Itmar into its umpteenth and never-ending series. Yet in wartime, there were editions of the show that were enough in themselves to justify the treadmill of effort. Here, Handley addresses one of his vaster live audiences, the home fleet at Scapa Flow.
Order!
Men under punishment to muster. Men with blunt razors to plaster. But the wren shook her head when I asked her. Away, barge.
Barge boost? What barge?
Cabarge. We're having sprouts today. Well, now I must get cracking. Now, here's the orders for the day. 5 a.m. Show a leg. Don't like the look of it. Put it back again. 10 o'clock. Cup of tea served to self and wife in twin hammocks. 10:05, wake up. 11 a.m. Censor captain's letters. And copy out all the new words. 12 noon, manicure big toe with anchor. 1:05, cast off from boy and tie up to girl. Well, now, I'd better phone the Admiralty and see what this is all about. Hello? Can I speak to somebody in authority?
Well, sir, what can I do for you, sir?
Well, I'd like to speak to the First Lord on the right as you go in.
Well, sir, he's not in, sir.
Well, can I speak to the Second Lord on the left as you go out?
Well, sir, what's it about, sir?
Well, it's about turning my farm into a naval base.
Well, sir, can I do anything, sir?
Yes, sir. I'd like to place an order with you, sir.
Well, do it, sir.
I will, sir. Now, send me a second-hand battleship, 2 dozen drifters, and an Admiral's launch fitted with a gin turret.
Itmar even had its own private traditional Cockney char, Mrs. Mop.
Can I do your nails, sir?
Well, if it isn't Mrs. Mop, the mascot of the Marines. Now, I want your help, Mrs. Mop. Now, are you good with sailors?
Oh, I love them, sir. Bless their bell-bottoms.
Madam, you're speaking of the trousers I love. Anyway, my estate's going to be turned into a naval base, so you'll be surrounded by sailors.
There can't be too many for me, sir. I was once engaged to a jaunty, sir.
Jaunty? Oh, dear.
He was very affectionate, sir.
Oh, I see, a petting officer.
Yes. Every time he came on leave, he used to...
Quite.
I've brought this for you, sir.
Oh, isn't that nice? What is it?
It's the bosun's blancmange, sir.
Bosun's blancmange? Looks more like a dumpling with a duffel coat on.
DTFN.
An LYSLDDTH.
What's that, sir?
Never let your sea legs dangle down the hatch.
What power and what responsibility to have such an audience waiting to explode at every line, as the comedian Billy Fordham remarked on Music Hall.
So, listeners, I'm a very lucky man. I mean, what would Hitler give for what I've got tonight? Air supremacy for 7 minutes.
All very well for him, but did all this radio comedy do any good overall? Oh, I think it must have done.
Ladies and gentlemen, before I thank the artists who have come along here tonight, I have some wonderful news for you. It has just been announced on the Midnight News that Tunis and Bizerta have fallen.
Radio Fun is written and presented by Russell Davies and produced by Neil Cargill. Next week, the war years continue, as does the humour, ranging from Ack Beer Beer, Shipmates Ashore and Merry-Go-Round for the forces, to the more homely humour of Stephen Potter and Joyce Grenfell.